Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Mills. Today is Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Welcome to our August 2024 webinar produced by Global Innovation Institute. As most of you know, GI&I is the world's leading professional certification, business accreditation, and membership organization in the field of innovation. And once a month, we host a monthly webinar series talking about different aspects of innovation with the goal of really broadening our overall perspective on innovation and allowing us to have access to a lot of thought leaders in this space that bring different perspectives to this world of innovation. So we're glad you're able to join us, whether you're live today or you're watching the recording. We're very glad to have you with us today. What I'd like to do now is introduce our guest today and tell you about her before I hand over the floor to her to speak. So our guest today is Miss Jennifer Kinney. Jennifer is a serial entrepreneur who speaks and writes extensively on the topic of building innovation capacity, with a specific focus on two of the big levers of innovation, namely technology and gender diversity. Her work is based on systems thinking and language action design / human-centered design. She has published numerous books, and her work has been featured by Stanford University in their executive briefing program and in publications like Forbes magazine, Women in Technology International, the San Francisco Business Times, and Industry Week magazine. For most of her career, Jennifer has worked at the interface of organizational and technological architecture and transformation. Her lifelong pursuit and passion has been, how do we use technology to make humans smarter, wiser, and more compassionate? And how do we engage humans to make technology that is smarter, safer, easier to use, and more supportive of our well-being? Consequently, the focus of her speaking, writing, and programs is leveraging artificial intelligence to amplify human innovation capacity, not just the ideation, but the entire practice of innovation. And in that context, she has clients like Toyota, Wells Fargo, BlueScope, and Woven, amongst others. Jennifer has won numerous awards and was most recently shortlisted for the Thinkers 50 Global Innovation Awards. She's also a member of the Forbes Technology Council, and in 2023 was recognized as one of 150 women B2B thought leaders you should follow. She's also a Thinkers 360 top 25 thought leader in creativity and a top 100 thought leader in innovation, design thinking, and emerging technology. Her 2023 book, The Innovation Mindset, achieved bestseller status across multiple categories and was described by Dr. Wolfram Burgard, the globally renowned leader in robotics research at the University of Nuremberg, as providing a uniquely valuable view into how to improve human collaboration in support of greater innovation. This book was #1 in business education and reference, #1 in business operations research, #1 new release in business operations research, top 20 in business management and leadership, and top 50 in business and finance. Jennifer's latest book is 100% Capacity, The End of Gender Balance as We Know It, which was published just this past February by Macmillan Press. It covers the enormous opportunity gap that the current state of gender disparity costs our world, the explosive opportunity that exists if we can address it, and the steps we can take as leaders to initiate our journey to 100% capacity. Previously, Jennifer was the Chief Information Officer of the Stanford Research Institute, where she led the transformation of their information technology organization into a driver of measurable business innovation. She's also held previous leadership positions at WebEx, Cisco, Wells Fargo, Booz Allen, and Accenture, and has served in a number of international academic roles, including being the featured entrepreneur at the University of Colorado Profiles in American Enterprise, a guest lecturer at the University of Santa Clara Levy School of Business MBA program, the PMO lead at the University of California San Francisco Medical Center, and advisor to the president of Tanring Albing University, Executive Center for Global Leadership in Jakarta, Indonesia. Jennifer is also a partner in Now Partners, a partnership of leading environmentalists who are committed to accelerating economic evolution to regenerate people and the planet. And she's the past chair of the Global Women's Leadership Network, where she led the receipt of a $2 million grant funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Her firm, 100% Capacity, uses its Dynamo platform to develop innovation leadership capacity through Next Level Innovation Leadership and Got Your Back mid-level women innovation leadership programs. Jennifer holds a master's degree in geotechnical engineering from Imperial College, University of London, a Bachelor of Science in Geology and Chemistry from University College Dublin, and postgraduate qualifications from Stanford Graduate School of Business. Today, Jennifer is going to be talking to us about how to dig ourselves out of this bottomless pit of coordination overhead and instead practice together so as to create innovation capacity through listening to our customers and one another. This includes a portfolio of practices that can help us build a true innovation mindset inside our organization. As innovators, this is incredibly important to us because we all need to develop this true innovation mindset in our organization. So with that, please join me, if you will, in welcoming Ms. Jennifer Kinney. Jennifer, the floor is all yours.
Anthony, thank you very much. I had, yeah, I've been around a while, that's for sure. But absolute pleasure to be here with you all this morning, and thank you very much. If I talk too fast or my accent is too much, please let me know. I'm, as Anthony said, originally from Ireland, and yeah, I will leave it to you to put your hand up if you're having a problem. So I'm going to do something a little bit different this morning. I don't like doing the sage from the stage where you have the talking head either on stage. I do a fair amount of public speaking or on a webinar. I'm much more interested in a level of interaction with all of you. So you'll see throughout the program, I've put in polls so we can begin to see what other people in the audience think, in the group think. And just give us a sense of where we're at. And usually it's good fun because I'm asking questions that maybe your company would never ask you, because this is an independent webinar, so I get to ask you unusual questions, and I'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll do it in real time so you get to see what's going on, and we'll share that together. And then I'm also going to talk about innovation as a practice, which is different than innovation as purely idea generation. It requires a much higher level of personal practice, personal mastery, and a much, much bigger commitment from organizations to build that within their people. So the organizations that I've worked with are committed to growing the mastery of their people and converting that into amazing global impacting innovations. So that's usually where I come in. So Anthony, will you confirm in a second that you can see this?
I will confirm it
Okay.
once I see it.
Once you see it, all right. Thank you very much. Good, good. Oh, wait, now I have to do here. All right. And we should be
Yes, you're
showing this now.
we do see it, yes.
Okay, good. And you see just that?
No, you need to put it in presentation mode, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
It did it in presentation mode for me. Very odd. Okay, sorry about this. Taking me into backstage. Okay.
Or you can just maximize that window, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now have you got it?
Yeah, we're seeing your whole desktop.
Still seeing it on desktop mode. Very odd. Okay.
But
Let's go back. Sorry
we can
about
work
that.
with it.
We got it working a moment ago.
Yes,
Okay.
trust us, we did. Yes.
Yes, we did. Okay, here we are.
There we are. Yes.
Yeah.
You're good to go.
So without further ado, what I've always been interested in is how do we reduce the noise around us that allows us to be able to actually think for ourselves and think together and co-invent and innovate together. And what's happening in a lot of organizations these days is the level of noise that's going on for people really puts them in a position where it's very difficult for them to innovate and to do any real thinking. Part of this is I'm going to be asking you questions. If you can take your phone and literally hold it up to the QR code and just pick up the QR code, you will be taken to a website that will allow you to fill in polls as I do the presentation. And we'll be able to see the polls here in real time live. So I'm going to give you all just a minute to use the QR code to be able to get into the presentation. And I'll do it myself here as well so that you can see what it is that we're doing. So can everybody get that? If you have any problems, let us know in the chat. So just scan the QR code and you should be able to join into the polls. And I've got them scattered throughout the presentation. Okay. So there are three things that we're going to look at today is digging ourselves out of the endless pit of what I refer to as coordination overhead. And this was a term that was put forward in 2005 by a professor in New York University called Clay Shirky. And he did a very interesting job of helping people understand that coordination overhead is the cost of having groups of human beings do things together. Now, what's happened over the last 20 years since he put that out is that cost has gotten higher and higher and higher. People are working remotely, people are working across experiences with each other, people have come from very different backgrounds, people are also somewhat confused about multiple different changes and switches in technologies and strategies. And so our coordination overhead has increased significantly over the last 20 years. What I also want to talk to you about is or introduce a portfolio of practices that can help you build an innovation mindset. Historically, we've looked at innovation as being something that we're good at or we're not good at, and something that has to do with very much our ideas. I'm much more interested in the belief that all human beings are by nature innovative, and with the right practices in place and a right understanding of what those practices are, they can very effectively contribute new thinking, new innovations to their organizations and to our society as a whole. And then also how to practice innovation together. Oops, so this is, I haven't, oh. So what is coordination overhead? Coordination overhead is when people get together and the work that they need to do to be able to align and coordinate with each other. Now, this is super easy when you have a very small group. People have shorthand for how they coordinate with each other. They understand what it is that they're doing with each other, and it's fairly easy for them. They have personal relationships that they can rely on that support them with their coordination. But what happens is when we move into a higher level of a broader number of people, a higher level of coordination, what happens is we have hundreds of thousands of people that we're trying to coordinate with across multiple different continents. And sometimes what happens is we then focus on purely product innovation. So we focus exclusively on the product. And we don't pay attention to the human aspect of it, which is where the innovation actually comes from. And you'll see companies that focus exclusively on their products age out over a period of time because there's only so much quote unquote innovation that you can add to a hardware or software product. The human innovation aspect of things is where we actually get the juice for ongoing product innovation. And once we start building our human innovation capacity, we also start moving out into the broader ecosystem. We build relationships across organizations and across countries and across continents. I was talking to Anthony earlier about what he's doing, and he's building a global ecosystem for certification for people in the innovation space. And so he's got relationships all over the globe. That's where you start to get a level of innovation emerging from a global ecosystem that is incredibly valuable for long-term sustained innovation. But what's happening at the moment is everybody is super busy. And when I put this up and I'm doing a big speech, people tend to laugh because they're basically saying, yeah, that's what my calendar actually looks like. And a lot of people are going um, from meeting to meeting to meeting to things with their family, to things with their communities, and they are literally back to back. There is nowhere in here for people to actually be able to think. And what we're finding is that this level of overwhelm means that people are zoning out, people are checking out, people are feeling dissatisfaction. And there was some new data out that, yesterday from the Labour Department saying that there's a growing level of dissatisfaction for people in what it is that they're doing at work. So it usually looks like things are getting added, nothing's getting taken away. Everyone has more meetings because we're trying to coordinate because of the way we think about what is coordination. And decisions get made and they don't get proliferated throughout the organization. Everything they do is more cross-functional, but it's hard for people to do cross-functional because when we're overwhelmed, we tend to withdraw into our silos. Leaders are spread too thin, and people struggle with finding someone who can help and guide them. And so in the middle of that, what we're seeing is that people are struggling deeply with this. So this is the first poll. And if you can get into the first poll, if you can give me your responses in real time, that'd be great. And if people are voting by not doing that, we'll skip our polls. But I think this might be fun. It might be fun for you. So the submission's open. You've got a minute to just go in and do your poll, and we can begin to see how other people in the group are actually feeling with regards to this. Yeah. Thank you for doing this, folks. It makes it more interesting for all of us. So it looks like this is actually fairly common for people in terms of the issues that we're dealing with. More meetings to attend and more emails. Yeah, that's a fairly common one. So this is coordination overhead. This is the cost that we pay for poor coordination with each other that gets in the way of us being able to innovate. I started doing work in innovation, 30 years ago. And as I looked at it, I realized that people were struggling much more deeply with just finding time to think than they were with actually being able to do brilliant innovations. So this is super interesting, more meetings, more emails, and then things getting added and nothing get taken away. So it's fairly common for all of us. So the traditional fixes that we do, we're not going to do this. The traditional fixes that we do is we then tend to, and our leaders tend to kind of clamp down on things. There's chaos happening around us. How do we actually clamp down on things? And what happens then is people start tracking everything. So everyone's used, some of the task tracking and task management programs. We have more informative meetings where you get a talking head telling you what's going on, and you're supposed to assimilate everything from that. We have more informative memos and emails, and I've seen executives being taught and trained and told how to do more informative memos and emails. So now we're getting more information again. Some companies try and fix things with values. We do try and do more follow-ups, prioritization, steering committees, project reviews, RACI, document all decisions. So you're familiar with all of these things, and I'm sure you've been involved in some of them, and you're working with some of them in your current organizations. But these are the traditional fixes that try and solve the coordination overhead problem. What collaboration actually looks like when we are trying to innovate, it looks like this. This is actually a real map from a real client, anonymized, of course, but what they were looking to do was they were looking to understand the interconnections between all the different groups and all the different sub-projects. And when we mapped this out, and we mapped this out with 30 people in the room, and for them it was enlightening and fun and interesting. But when we mapped it out, the knee-jerk reaction was to go back to this, because we see that and we interpret it as chaos. And therefore, what we do is we try and solve the chaos with the traditional fixes. But collaboration actually does look like this. And human beings are actually able to handle this if we can see it and understand it, and we have practices for knowing how to be able to coordinate. There was one person in the middle of this group that all roads led to Rome. All roads led to this person's group. And so we realized in that time that that group was a great group to focus with in terms of being able to improve the coordination for the entire team. So do you have these sort of bottlenecks in your organization where you have one group that everything goes through, and therefore it produces all of these? Yes, 100%. Yeah. So that's fairly common. And that group could be a marketing group, a coordination group, a project management group. And that group are the group that most of all need to understand innovation as a practice, along with obviously the rest of us too. But just to give us an idea of, yeah, that is an issue. So what happens is people get overwhelmed and it's just too much. So collaboration is really coordination and co-invention. Now, what happens is we've assigned a lot of our collaboration to tools. And the tools are designed for linear reporting and for linear coordination. But the coordination that we as human beings do is much, much more multifaceted and much more complex, and we are much more agile at it. So what's happening is organizations are putting their collaboration work into a tool that is linear to support human beings that are unbelievably agile. And institutions now think about work as being, and collaboration and coordination as being input, process, output. So anyone who's worked with any of the project management tools know that you get assigned a task. When you've completed the task, you flag the task as completed, you move it forward in the process, and you now have an output that the next person picks up. Now, this made a lot of sense when people had very poor education and they were working in factories. They were coming in from the fields, working on the factory floors, and they were told how to do a specific tiny part of work. But human beings today are much better educated, much more aware, much more globally aware, and therefore much, much more agile. And yet our technologies and the way we think about and design work is this incredibly linear approach. And this linear approach precludes us from actually being able to think and design and co-invent together, which is the generative aspect of our innovation capacity. So, and I'm not going to ask you to do this exercise, but just to give you an idea, is when groups are working together, we now, to some extent, hide behind our technologies and we lob stuff over the wall to each other. And invariably, there's confusion when stuff gets lobbed over the wall together. We're not having the conversations that we need to have in order to enormously simplify things. So who throws stuff over the wall to you? Someone on your team, your boss, someone else in the group. So I'm going to put this up again. You're getting stuff thrown over the wall to you. Who's familiar with the things being lobbed over the wall? Yeah, your boss. Yeah. So a lot of times what's happening is, yeah, someone throwing things over the wall. Yeah. So we're getting it from everywhere by the looks of things. Yeah, thank you for responding. So it is, we get stuff lobbed over the wall to us from a variety of different places. And that is because our work is designed like this. Now, this is, again, a real example from a while ago from a client, and they were mapping out a workflow, which seemed like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And it still is a perfectly reasonable thing to do to map out a workflow. The only problem is this workflow doesn't actually involve any human beings. I think they drew a little random human in here. And we designed work as if the computers were going to do the work for us. We designed work as if we are robots. And when we put ourselves into the middle of that, we lose context, we lose understanding, we lose perspective, we lose interpretation, we lose the ability to be able to bring our mastery to the table and to be able to collaborate with another human being based on their mastery. And so we lose that generative, innovative spark that allows us to really be able to bring new intelligence, new capacity, new mastery, new innovation to the table. But we know we're not robots, and it's even more relevant and more urgent today in the age of AI that we recognize that human beings are the most agile, the most innovative, the most adaptive, the most complex beings when it comes to thinking about where do we want to take our organizations and how do we want to innovate to serve each other. So we're not robots. And if we're not robots, then we need a different way of thinking about work. So earlier on, I talked about work as being input, process, output, a very linear, extractive type of approach. This is work that was done by, based on work that was done by Terry Winograd and Fernando Flores, who have done work extensively with Larry Page and Sergey Brin down at Google. And they talk about it as the coordination loop or the language action protocol, and you can look it up on the web. And the way I look at it is it's empathetic work, and it becomes an atom of work that we can begin to understand as human beings. So we're doing a level of development, understanding what is the customer really looking for. When we're lobbing stuff over the wall, someone's going to lob stuff over the wall to you, you spend half of your time trying to figure out what it is that they are actually trying to get you to do, or trying to ask you to do, or trying to understand, and you have no context because that gets stripped out in the process. So what do customers really want? How do we develop an understanding of a customer, both internal and external, that we can begin to do that concept idea development together? And then how do we do the design? How do we bring our design thinking or understanding of what it is that we're looking to produce together to the table through our own personal mastery in a way that we can design effectively with our customer, which is a highly collaborative, co-inventive process. The delivery part of it we're all familiar with because we have all been trained from time we first started school to do the delivery part, which is the process, process, process. So when we get lobbed over the wall, something over the wall, the question is, how fast can we get into delivery mode and deliver it? But if we do that in this third quadrant here, so you read this like a clock, in this third quadrant, what we're doing is we're jumping automatically into performance mode. And there's a lot of pressure on us in organizations to perform, perform, perform. But what we're failing to understand is in doing that performing, we're generating a lot of waste. We end up doing a lot of rework. We end up getting burnt out, and we end up being disillusioned and dissatisfied with our own work because we don't get to bring our best to the table. And because of the churn here, you also see that churn show up in people moving around between jobs, looking for somewhere where they can do the development and the design work, because that's what really sparks their brilliance. And then understanding what it is that serves a customer and how do we learn from the closed loop process so that it becomes a virtuous cycle and we actually get to learn and build trust with each other over time. So this is what this looks like. So from Flores and Winograd from the Language Action Protocol. So they talk about it as being a conversation between a customer and a performer, hugely powerful way of looking at work. And I've been working with this for over 30 years, and I've seen massive transformation happen with something this incredibly elegant and simple happen when human beings actually be able to start having conversations with each other. So a customer will make a request or a performer will make an offer, and they will go into this development and then design phase, and they make a promise together that they are going to produce satisfaction for the customer. Now what happens is we've actually got an invested customer as opposed to someone who's lobbing stuff over the wall and just trying to get it off their plate or out of their inbox. And when we get to the delivery stage, we've got someone who's got our back, who's having the conversations with us. Now, a lot of people, when they see this, they go, that's great, but how does this scale? This scales through human practices. This scales to people learning how to be able to have a different kind of conversation with each other. This scales from people's understanding how they get to bring their mastery to the table, which is why we all come to work in the first place. We come to work to be able to be brilliant and contribute. And right now we're coming to work and all we get to do is contribute under pressure, under duress, in an environment that isn't conducive to us being brilliant. So just to get a sense from you is how much of your day is spent on coordination overhead? The noise in the system. How much of your day is spent on just doing stuff that doesn't allow you to be able to think for yourself, to be able to extend your own brilliance, to be able to think about how it is that you become truly practiced and masterful at what you love? Yeah. So it's eating away almost half of our days. Yeah. So what happens in this situation, thank you again for responding. What happens in this situation is we spend half of our day running around like headless chickens. We spend half of our day trying to get stuff done. And what we miss out on is how do we actually get to think? How do we get to read? How do we get to study? How do we get to have conversations with each other so we're learning from each other rather than just being robots lobbing stuff over the wall to each other? So the most important thing out of this to understand is that human beings actually like to make innovative offers to each other. And we come into work in order to be able to serve each other and to be able to serve our customers and to be able to have wins because of that. And so what happens over time, the coordination overhead erodes our ability to be able to make offers. The higher the coordination overhead, the less offers we're making, the less innovative we are. And there's a direct relationship there between coordination overhead and innovation capacity. And what happens is we reduce every human being's ability to be able to make offers. I was running a program once on the East Coast, and it was for the management team, and some brilliant person, and I don't mean that cynically, I mean brilliant person, had a new person join that day, and they said, hey, why don't you go sit in the back of the room and see what's going on with the leadership team? We got permission, and he sat at the back, and at the end of it, he came in, he said, hey, this is my first day. I'm going over to headquarters next week, and I love the idea of making offers. What would you recommend that I do? And I said to him, well, why don't you identify before you go 4 people that you would like to build trust with, that you respect their work, that you would like to build a relationship with, that you would like to make an offer to, and go figure out what it is that you could offer to them that would be valuable. And when I say making an offer, I don't mean that you go and go, what can I do to help? But that you've thought out ahead of time what you have to offer that would be valuable for those people. And that's your introduction. They will never forget you. They will always remember you as the guy who came up with something valuable and wasn't just standing there saying hello. So human beings like to make offers, and making offers builds trust over time if it's effectively done. And so trust is one of the key elements for innovation to happen. If we don't trust each other, we have no capacity to co-invent with each other. You don't co-invent with people that you don't trust. And when I talk about co-invention, I'm talking about, and you've all had this happen to you at some point in your lives because you're in the innovation space, that magic moment when you're in a room with another person or a group of people and you're doing what looks almost like jazz improvisation. You're bringing your thinking, your understanding, your mastery to the table, and people are building on it and you're building on theirs, and you go through this process, and it's like a magical dance, and you come out of there having done something that you know is valuable, that you know is going to bring other people value, and that was incredibly joyful for you. And we live for those moments. But today, there are less and less and less of those moments because we are buried with the noise and so little of the signal of our true selves coming through and our innovation capacity showing up. So making offers and building trust reduces waste. So if you can get into the practice of making brilliant offers, which I'm sure you can, but it does take practice, you will build trust with people in your organization over time. And what happens is the waste that happens from people rushing to do the performance phase of the work, not understanding what the context is, not understanding what the other person is asking for, not being able to do that innovative co-invention phase with their internal customer, increases the amount of churn and burn that happens. If we get good at making offers and building trust, we reduce waste over time. So I'm certain that every single one of you have your go-to people inside your companies that you have a shorthand with, that you know they can help you get something done. Those are the people who you already have a level of trust with. And you're doing that because you want to reduce the waste of your time. If you turn that around and you start thinking about, those are the people that I have trust with, how can I begin to build a level of trust with other people in other parts of my organization, that so that I can co-invent with them and come up with new, highly impactful solutions, offers to external customers, opportunities that I want to pursue across my organization. So offers and trust means that we have less waste. We have less knowledge destroying silos, because what happens over time when people are looking at coping with the overwhelm of the massive coordination overhead is they tend to put their arms around what they can control. And we tend to then pull ourselves into little silos within our organizations. Those silos then lob stuff over the wall at each other, and they build up little barricades, and they speak disparagingly about each other. And we've all worked in organizations that are heavily siloed. That's enormously wasteful. Now we're missing out on all the opportunity to be able to co-invent and design and collaborate together. We end up with unaligned teams, and we end up with uncoordinated individuals who are unclear as to what it is that they're working on, trying to do, and how they add value, and incredibly frustrated. Sometimes when I'm doing a big speech or I'm running a big workshop, I will go in and I will say, okay, who came into work today and ended up being fed up and pissed off with somebody else at work? And everybody smiles and puts their hand up. And then I say, who came into work today and ended up being very pissed off and very upset with everybody at work? And most people are sitting there with both their hands up. And then I said, okay, now put your hands down. Who came into work with the intention of pissing off a whole bunch of people at work today? And everybody laughs because none of us come into work with the intention of pissing off other people. But the way that we have designed work and the way that we work and our practices around work don't surface our innovation capacity, don't bring our intelligence to the table. They weigh us down with coordination overhead, with our inability to be able to truly serve each other and add value for each other. Once you get above the line here, above the line of waste, and you begin to do the magic of the coordination together as human beings, you now begin to start moving into coordination where we're just doing the dance of organizing ourselves, co-invention where we're actually beginning to bring our intelligence and mastery to the table. And then over time, as we build deep trust with each other, we actually start creating new knowledge together. Because if I know you and I've worked with you through a couple of cycles, I have a better understanding of what you are passionate about, what you are masterful in, what you read about on an ongoing basis, what you deeply care about, what you want to make happen in the world. And once I'm able to listen to you on that level, now I can bring my mastery and my understanding and my experience to the table, and we can begin to start creating knowledge together in pursuit of a project or some initiative that we want to go after. It's at that point that we truly get to the innovation. If innovation was nothing more than producing ideas, nobody in the waste part of work can hear those ideas, and they get squandered and wasted as well. If we're moving up into the value creation stage of being able to coordinate with each other, when someone does come up with something that is truly innovative, we can hear it because now we recognize it as it's co-invention, it's knowledge creation, ultimately it's innovation. So what is innovation? If you type what is innovation into Google, you get millions of light bulbs. And we have this image in our heads, courtesy of Edison, thank you, Edison, but that wasn't all there is to innovation. We have this image in our heads of innovation being about light bulbs. It's ideas, it's ideas, it's ideas. And there's lots of software that has to do with employee ideation and ideas coming in. But the deal with it is, if you're not in that dance of mastery with other human beings, your level of innovation and your ability to be able to even come up with ideas is going to be poorer and weaker. So successful innovation is not about light bulbs. It's about a practice. So any of you who practice a sport, practice a musical instrument, practice a language, practice an art, you understand the dedication that is required to actually be in practice around something. I practice yoga, and it requires a level of patience, a level of understanding of what mastery looks like that you may never get to in your lifetime. And it's a daily practice. But the more you practice, the deeper your wisdom becomes around a particular area of your life, and it spreads to other areas as well. But innovation as a practice requires that we humbly submit ourselves to the process of making offers to other human beings, building trust with other human beings, understanding how to coordinate and co-invent with them, getting to the point of where we're creating knowledge together, and we're in pursuit of bringing our ideas and other people's ideas to the market through a practice of innovation. Otherwise, it is simply an idea being lobbed over the wall the same way we would do with another project, and it won't go anywhere. So the practice of innovation allows us to be able to reduce the noise and increase the signal, and ultimately get to the point where we build practices for ourselves over time. And again, over time, because it does require patience and practice, over time to be and have an innovation mindset that allows us to be able to co-invent with other human beings and create amazing things that serve humanity. So that, in a nutshell, Anthony, is a whirlwind tour of the innovation mindset.
Very good. It's very enlightening as well. So, uh, we would invite you. Now, are you ready for our audience to ask questions?
Yes,
And
absolutely. Yes, that's why I'm stopping. Yes.
yes, yes, very good. So we would invite all of our audience to ask questions at this point. I'm gonna put myself on spotlight there. So if you, I've seen a number of comments here about leadership trust and so forth, and
Hmm.
certainly, I found your suggestion insightful. If I may just comment
Yeah,
on the
please.
first, is you know we talk a lot about in the innovation space about stakeholder management, how to manage stakeholders, and
Mm.
always analyzing who your stakeholders are in a situation and understanding their with them, what's in it for me, and what's the levers we can pull to address that. It seems like you've taken that one step further and trying to be much more preemptive about it by making an offer, as you put it. There are people, you have individuals that are trying to be much more proactive to get out in front of that and think about this ahead of time and make these offers to create this collaborative environment. And it seems like that's just a very proactive approach towards stakeholder management. Does that make sense, or you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the stakeholder management, I have found very useful for just getting the lay of the land. But I've also found over the years that if we're doing a big project, a big technology rollout, a big product introduction, a big product launch, a big product development, if we're doing any one of those, um, we tend to look at it like we need to change the whole organization to serve what it is that we're doing. And so we do these big transformation projects. I found that the big transformation projects that require large scale stakeholder management invariably don't work. And, we all know transformation is a tricky business. So what I've found is that you're much more successful starting with a small group of people. Per Margaret Mead, small group of people can change the world. And if you start with a small group of people inside an organization, what you're doing is you're fine tuning your understanding of what matters to other people. And once you get a handle on that and you make offers within that group and you deliver successfully on those and people see the impact for themselves, and you're not coming in with your prescriptive blueprint as to what needs to happen, you're coming in with what you think might work and you are learning through the process. You end up with something that is much more finely attuned and calibrated to the organization and much more welcomed. So you're not going over that huge big hump of adoption. And believe me, I've done this with technologies for a long time. You don't go through that huge big hump of adoption. You go through this process of understanding why people want what you have to offer. And once you get a handle on that, then it's much more invitational and people are coming when they need stuff to happen. So the process of building pilots and growing from there for any kind of transformation, I've always found to be much more successful. Stakeholder management will give me a lay of the land. The actual rubber meets the road is where you begin to do something within small pilot groups and you begin to really learn what it is that is of value to people. And you're not going out proselytizing and convincing, you're co-inventing, which builds a lot more trust. And when people are trusted and they know that they can be heard, you learn a lot more than you ever would by managing them as stakeholders.
Mhm. Yes, that's a great point. Certainly you want to build trust, not manage people. That's a valid point. And what you're
Yeah,
saying about starting in small groups and how that process, actually that resonates exactly with my friend Greg Satell. He wrote the book Cascades, and
good. Yeah,
exactly his same
yeah.
approach. So
It's a cascade. Yeah,
it is a cascade like that.
yeah.
So for those of us that are in the audience here, give us your questions. What questions do you have for Jennifer? Please either put them in the chat, or if you want to, jump in with your microphone and camera, feel free to jump in and ask a question. But at the very least, let us know what your questions are in the chat here. So Barbara has a question for you. Barbara is one of our regulars. She says, very insightful, thank you. Do you think that it's helpful if those in a company shadow someone in a different department? Can it help them learn by knowing what their day is like in another role?
Yeah, absolutely it does. But what I have done with that, Barbara, is I don't, if someone suggests that, I'm like, great, anything that helps people actually build empathy for each other and understand each other is a good thing, just a good thing. And invariably they end up bringing more value and delivering more value when they get back. But I wouldn't just send them out and go shadow someone. Um, I tend to do a lot of prep work for people before they do that because listening is a core element of innovation. And as we build people's capacity to be able to listen, then there are practices to help do that. And it's in the book and whatever. But as we build our capacity to be able to listen, we also build our capacity to be able to innovate and learn much more effectively. So before I would send someone out to shadow someone in a different department, if there was an opportunity to be able to make that happen, I would be spending time with those people and helping them learn how to actually be able to listen to other human beings. And by that, I don't mean hear the air molecules they're moving. I mean, actually try and understand, learn to understand what it is that matters to that person and what's top of mind and a priority for them as they go through their day. And again, that's not necessarily their OKRs or KPIs because we individualize our OKRs and KPIs and we go about things in our own particular ways. And the more you can understand that about someone, the more you can offer, the more powerful offers you can make to them, and the more trust you can build with them. And bluntly, the more fun you can have with them. People are fabulous when you get to know them.
Well, an excellent answer and excellent question. So, for all those of you, please feel free to bring your questions in as well. Uh, you know, Jennifer, one of the things I was thinking about in my mind is sometimes where I felt that I'm able to do this better is if I get people away from work into more of a social setting,
Mm.
um, especially if you're able to have a few drinks, right? In that sort of a social lubricant. But what is your experience? It's like, I mean, are there different? I guess my question is this: are there different settings that are more conducive to this than maybe the high pressure work environment? Are you any experience and thoughts around that?
Well, I think that the high pressure work environment is where we work and where we get paid to work and where we supposedly do our best work. And, I love the social stuff is great and it's lovely and you do get to know people a little bit better. But, taking a whole bunch of people into a social environment and go get to know each other is sort of like taking a whole bunch of kindergartners onto a tennis court and handing them rackets and balls and go play tennis. So I think that for me, at least, the in the absence of human beings understanding what human coordination looks like, what innovation looks like, what collaboration looks like, how to listen to each other, we're kind of missing the point. We're going there and going, and what do you think about the weather? And how's your dog? And do you have children? All those things are lovely, and I'm very happy to know them. I'm going to forget them 2 seconds after I walk out the door. But what do you want to make happen in the world? What matters to you in terms of how you pursue your interests and your mastery in the world? How does that relate to your work? Those are questions we haven't been trained to ask each other, and they're not even necessarily, acceptable questions. And yes, that level of listening allows us to be able to make offers to people that are a lot more valuable than if I know that you have, a dog called Bozo or whatever. Now I'm still back where I started, right?
Yeah,
So understanding what matters to another human being in terms of what they want to make happen in the world and how they express their brilliance and want to bring it to other people to serve them, which we all do. We're wired to do that. And yet we've never been trained how to listen to that for each other.
yeah, that's a great point. I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as we tend to do small talk about the weather and sports
Mm.
and family and stuff, really that's just a way to fill time, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. It's just a way to fill time. It's because we're socially uncomfortable and awkward, and that's how we fill the time and let the time go by. But if we actually invest that time to go deep with people and talk about what really matters to them and what they want to achieve, yeah, that like you said, you're 100% right. That unlocks so much more value when we're actually working together. That just unlocks massive potential. So that's an
Yeah.
excellent point. Excellent point. We do have a few questions on the chat here. Um, this one's first one's really broad. I don't know if you can give it your thoughts if you want. What are the simple and effective tools to start the innovation process in the entity or in the company?
The simple and effective tools are some of the ones that I've touched on, and I have tools. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pump the book, but I have tools in the book that then have practices in the back of the chapter that will allow you to be able to pick a tool and work it with your team. And the tool can be something as simple as understanding as a team what matters to one of your primary customers and beginning to map that out and learn that together and building empathy maps for that customer. And then working with your team to translate that. Okay, now that we understand what matters to this person above and beyond what, the company says matters to them, how do we make powerful offers to them? So helping your team translate from the listening to the offering based on their areas of mastery. One of the things that we did with a client that turned out to be incredibly fun and interesting and really, really powerful for them was they started mapping out their own areas of mastery. What do I pursue? What do I read about in my personal time? What conferences do I go to? And what are the topics that I'm interested in? And it's not just topics, but it's something that I've dedicated myself to. And that is, once people start mapping that out together, now we have a foundation for having much, much richer conversations together. And we have a foundation for making the connections that actually serve each other and add value for each other. So I would go through some of that process, understanding what matters to people in terms of their mastery, introducing the concept of mastery, listening and building trust with people, and then helping them make their first offers.
Excellent.
Remember, they have not been trained to do that.
That's right. Yeah, I'll apologize to everyone in my cameras, but you'll forgive that as long as you can still hear me. Uh, there was another question here too, Jennifer. From your experience, how much innovation comes from the front line, and
I
how
love
much of
this.
that is
Yeah.
blocked by layers of management, and how to avoid that blocking?
Yeah, yeah, fantastic, Waleed. Yeah. So a lot. If people are trained to be able to listen to customers, and again, very few people are, because we again do a lot of transactional things with customers and try and kind of get them off the line. And a lot of the frontline workers that I've worked with, and particularly in banks, are basically their job is to get people off the phone as fast as they can and get a good score while doing it fast as possible. So a lot of that listening is lost in simply the interpretation of what the frontline workers are doing. There's a number of companies that have used the frontline very cleverly, and they have said, we're going to make our frontline workers represent our customer base. They're going to look like them, they're going to talk like them, they're going to be from similar backgrounds, and we're going to be able to create a level of listening and understanding there that it's a lot deeper than we otherwise would. So I think that is very valuable. And then how much of that is blocked by layers of management? Lots, if not all. And avoiding that blocking is, and I've done this work, is avoiding that blocking is helping the layers of management understand how to have an innovation mindset. So if someone from the front line comes into your office and said, hey, I was having a conversation with a customer the other day, and you don't say you're measured by how fast you can get them off the phone. You have a conversation with them around what it is that they see as valuable and why they want to make an offer around it and what they think is possible. So you help them design offers for the company that would actually provide better service for the customers or better products for the customers. Because a lot of the brilliant twists and improvements on product can come from the front line, and we miss a lot of them because we do not know how to listen and we don't know how to accept offers. So the work I've done in there has been bringing the innovation mindset to a broader group of people and then helping them actually be able to understand how to receive those and elicit offers and help people articulate them and then bring that value back into the company and ultimately out to the customer. Great
Yes,
question.
yeah, it is, and that's very important. I mean, until we can get our leaders in our organization and these key stakeholders to truly have an innovation mindset and want innovation, you're always going to be pushing the rope to some degree. So we don't want to just be pushing the rope. We want to have that mindset in our leaders, and so I guess if you're in that situation, if you have some way of maybe steering and pointing your leaders toward this sort of material, this sort of insight, the innovation mindset, and open their eyes to it, maybe that will remove some of the blockage in the process. So let's take one last question here, and that last question is another really broad one, and I'll let you address that, and then you can make any final comments. But the question is, what is the role of organization leaders to promote trust? How can they promote trust?
Well, first of all, they have to learn how to build it for themselves. And so when I'm running programs, I start with the middle level in an organization. I do some work with the exec level as well, so they know what's going on. But the mid-level people are the potentially the most impactful when it comes to building practices and building trust. And so what they do is they get sandwiched in between the leaders themselves and their people who report to them. So what happens over time is they have to learn how to build trust down and build trust up. And in the process of doing that, they actually have different conversations around it, and they learn to be able to treat the practice of building trust as a core leadership skill. And so over time, they build trust with their people. They open the door for offers to come. They build trust with their executive team. They open the door for building those relationships. And so the organization leaders need to learn how to be able to build it themselves. And then they need to learn how to be able to understand it as a core leadership practice. And once they start putting that in place, then they start helping their people do it and helping people above and below them do it. And also what they begin to see is the measurable impact of that trust building. So does that mean that we have more new products coming out? Does that mean that we have better customer engagement and better customer satisfaction? Does that mean that we have more innovation? We've worked with customers, clients through this process where they will work with us to do a new product introduction process. And we'll start talking about trust, and everyone is kind of a little surprised. But once they start see the process in place and they get their product out the door, we had one client who hadn't gotten a new product out the door in a decade, and we got a product out the door that 20 years later they were still making money on. And we started talking about trust. So we begin to start seeing how critical it is for human beings to be able to coordinate really well with each other and co-invent and innovate with each other in a way that allows them to actually be able to deliver on very hardcore business metrics. So to the question of the role of the organization, practice and metrics. Absolutely essential. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're saying it's something good to do, but we don't have any measurable impact associated with it, and that's risky.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. Really appreciate these wonderful insights. There's a lot of some other comments here about peer-to-peer recognition and open innovation sessions and things to do to build trust. And there are indeed there are other ways we can build trust and engage people. But, I think a lot of it comes down to those leaders just being sincere and human and wanting to build trust and working to build trust. And
Yeah.
if they can build the trust, like you said, and then they can leverage the, listening to one another and building that rapport and that empathy. As you said, they can start getting things out the door. They can start innovating. So, um, let me see. I was wondering if we had time for one more question, or do you have a hard stop, Jennifer?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Sometimes
So make
resistance
this.
from the leadership. Sorry.
Uh, yeah, the last question will just what innovation is possible in a support type organization versus a product type organization. So as I mentioned, a lot of the organizations are public sector, government
Mm.
organizations that do support and services. Any thoughts on how that might be different or the same in a type of organization?
It's slightly different in that there isn't a singular focus on a product, but I have done lots of innovation work with service organizations. And actually, the nice thing about a service organization is that the innovation cycles are shorter and faster. So people can begin to see the impact of their thinking over time. And someone mentioned continuous improvement somewhere. I would separate out continuous improvement versus innovation. Continuous improvement is we're making better what we already have. The innovation is we are bringing new interpretations, new insights, new opportunities, new possibilities to serve our customers. And they can work, absolutely, they can work hand in hand. But I would look at them quite significantly differently. And I think that innovation within service organizations is a more, it's almost a more subtle craft, because it has to come from the frontline workers and the level of listening that we were talking about earlier. And I've had some tremendous fun and success with service organizations where they have created an environment where the frontline workers were supporting each other, learning from each other, helping each other, and coming up with more innovative ways to be able to serve their customers, and becoming themselves customers for other parts of the organization that were designing some of the services that they were engaging with around the customers. So it creates a much more of a creative tension within the organization in a healthy way, which results in a much stronger innovation for frontline service workers. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again, Jennifer. That was
Very welcome.
very
Pleasure.
insightful. And so, just to wrap things up, we want to all thank Jennifer again, and although thank you for all the comments in the chat here about what a wonderful session this is. We want to thank Jennifer for sharing her insights with us and taking the time to do that. We very much appreciate that. This session has been recorded, and everyone who registered, you'll receive an email letting you know where the recording can be found. And for those who attended, you'll have a certificate of attendance for that. So thank you again, and until next month, we'll see you then. Goodbye, everyone.
Anthony, thank you.
Yes, take care.
Bye.